Hi Sarah, I gave up on the computer, so now we're using my phone. I think the computer was a problem because on my phone at least I can use data and we don't have to rely on the internet of the church.
Okay.
Okay, you're not freezing anymore, so that was a problem.
Can't hear you very well.
Yes, because I put you on the speaker plate. You're not freezing anymore, so that problem is solved. Yes, okay, so I think this is what we're going to work with, and now I need to make I adjusted the projector to fit the computer screen, now I have to adjust the projector to fit the phone screen. So, but you're not, but you know, in any case we'll hear your lovely voice.
Okay, well that's good.
Yes, so everything is sort of working, and we'll be completely working by 8 o'clock. Can you help me, John? Thank you. Okay? Can you come here first? I now need to be like bigger, so that's bigger. Can't see anything because of
A little bit bigger.
but the images. Oh, because I'm
Yeah, that's a lot better. That's bigger.
but my arm is like on the other way around. Because of all the lights.
Is this the one time where it's sunny where we don't want it?
We can't see anything because the lights are bright.
It is a little bit bigger, but yeah, it's not. Actually, flip back on that. Yeah, you're all good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to our second evening of talks of the Canterbury Shakespeare Festival. Here today we have with us Nick going to talk about Midsummer's Night's Dream, John Crofts talking about Henry V, and Sarah Lockyer talking about the Changeling. We will be selling tickets for our shows at the end of the talks. This year we have 6 fabulous shows. We have our free show, Henry V. We have our kids show, Midsummer's Night's Dream. We have our new writing, Don Quixote. We have the Merry Wives of Windsor and Romeo and Juliet. John is part of Romeo and Juliet. And I think I haven't forgotten anyone, and the Changeling, of course. So, in the end of August, we are going to be running our King's Head, an original play written by Charles Gumbridge at the Arden. So, very exciting stuff. Okay, so Nick has been part of the Canterbury Shakespeare Festival since moving to Canterbury, and he has played in several plays. I had the joy of sharing the stage with him in Much Ado About Nothing in 2021, and he says that he's particularly grateful to be cast as Polonius in a 2019 production of Hamlet. And Nick, this year will be really in any play? You're in Don Quixote and directing and starring in A Midsummer Night's Dream. So, welcome, Nick.
This is fun. Starring, I like that. I could live with that. Does this stay here or not? This stays here, great. Okay, I'll try not to knock it over. Good, this is fun. Yes, I'm talking about A Midsummer Night's Dream. What? Who? Why? Basically. Now, that's in 3 parts. So I'm going to first of all talk about who am I. Then I'm going to talk about what is A Midsummer Night's Dream. And then why are we putting on a Shakespeare play for kids? This is going to be terrible, isn't it? Right, okay. So, who am I? Now, because I'm an actor, I can talk about who I am for ages and ages. So, I'm going to time myself. If I give myself 8 minutes to talk about myself, then that will be all we need. Lovely. There we go. So, who am I? Well, yes, as Neil said, I've been a member of Canterbury Shakespeare Festival since 2018. And I'm the person directing and performing in A Midsummer Night's Dream. It's a Shakespeare. It's a version of Midsummer Night's Dream to be enjoyed by 5 to 11-year-olds. Okay? Now, about myself. Our family, we didn't go to the theatre. We weren't theatre goers at all. Mum and Dad, they loved musicals. They did do musicals, though. So when they were courting, they went to the original production of Oklahoma in the West End, the one with just the corn on the back and Curly coming in singing, "There's a bright golden haze on." They did that. They did My Fair Lady, the proper one with Julie Andrews, who got missed out of the film, which was appalling. They did South Pacific. They did all the Rodgers and Hammerstein. And later on, with me, they went to see Little Night Music and all the review of Showboat and things like that. So we did musicals. We had all the records. I could sing all the words to all the songs. That was sort of it. And as a child, to go to the theatre, the thing we did was the pantomime. So we went to the Palladium, the London Palladium Panto, where I saw Charlie Drake in something I can't remember what, but I do remember seeing Cliff in Aladdin, Cliff with the Shadows and Una Stubbs, and then again in Cinderella. So we did that. So when and that was really it. So when I got on, at school, we went to music concerts, went to opera, but not really plays. Can't remember going to plays at school. So when I started to go on stage, obviously I did musicals, so I was part of the Dartford Amateur Operatic and Dramatic Society. And we did, what did we do? We did Gilbert and Sullivan, obviously. We did Gilbert and Sullivan, we did Pirates of Penzance. We did the Vagabond King. Vagabond King? Wow. Merry Widow. My Fair Lady. Oklahoma, inevitably. So that's all those sort of things. So that's what I did. And Shakespeare, well, we did Julius Caesar at school in the second and third year, I think. I did Romeo and Juliet at O level. By then, I wasn't Baz Luhrmann, I was Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet in those days. And once, I remember I was about 14, I did go and see a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, and it was with my dad. We were on holiday in Wales, and it was in the ruins of St. David's Abbey, and so it was done in the Abbey. And that was rather nice, and I might tell you about that later. So, my experience of theatre is scenery, costumes, music, all 9 yards, okay, and all the works. But when I got to university, that was the first time I came across sort of stripped down theatre with minimal scenery and people just coming on a blank space with wearing black and making it up, and you had to use your imagination, and I loved it. I loved that. First thing I saw, a company I still follow, actually, Riding Lights Theatre Company. They did a thing called The Tree That Woke Up. There was just a tree, bare tree in the front, and everything came around it. And then gradually things got attached to the tree, and it was amazing. And I loved that. And after that, I discovered minimalist theatre. Things with just a stepladder or a chair or things like that. And so I was doing street theatre, and I was doing street theatre with the church. I can't tell you the countless times I've been crucified on a stepladder in the middle of Catford High Street. Wonderful. So that was it. And as I went to more theatre, I realised the productions I liked were the bare stage productions. Now, I was in uni in the 70s, which was just when the National Theatre came out, and they made the Cottesloe. It's now the Dorfman, isn't it? But the Cottesloe Theatre, which was just this square shoebox. And that was amazing, because I went to see productions there. I went to see Lark Rise, which had folk music as well, and they did Lark Rise, they did Candleford as well, the Flora Thompson, and it had music, and it had people, and it was a promenade. I'd never seen that before. That blew my mind. I remember once they had a scene where they were reaping the corn, and these 4 guys came out singing, "On it's all of a bowl," tonight with these sides, and they went through the audience. And of course, the audience had to get out of the way. It was just like corn falling. And that was one of those theatrical experiences. I think, yeah, that's brilliant. The same crowd did the Mysteries. They did the Nativity and the Passion and Doomsday. And they were all fantastic as well. So that's what I really thought. And at some point, I had the epiphany that Shakespeare was my natural home. Because 400 years ago, that's what he was doing. He was doing bare space. He didn't have scenery. He didn't have lighting. He might have had a balcony if he was lucky. But he worked with the audience to ignite their imagination. And he told them what they needed to say. So when Oberon comes on and says, "Ill met by moonlight, proud Titania," we know he's fed up with Titania. We know they're not on good terms. But we also know it's moonlight. And that saves an awful lot of money on lighting. That's how it goes. So, going back to my 14-year-old self watching A Midsummer Night's Dream, I know now what I loved about it was bare. That was all we had was the Abbey, and we had the fairies at the top, and they had scaffolding to go around at the top, and then we had the lovers on the main stage, and then there was the rude mechanicals who sort of came in amongst us. And I realised that's what I love. That's what I was doing. How am I doing? 1 minute. Got 1 minute to say why I like CSF, actually. CSF, since I've joined here, has been fabulous. It's been welcoming, and it's such a great community of actors. And I love the way that there's open rehearsals, and you come along and you rehearse, and you get a part, and you get a part that suits you for your confidence and for your ability. And so CSF has been great. And it's a bit like rep. I was saying to yourselves, it's a bit like rep. If you come year on year, you can suddenly recognise the same costumes being used again. There's a lovely gold gown that I always try and wear if I possibly can. I've worn it for Winter's Tale, I've worn it for Hamlet. And you keep seeing it each year. So when you come this year, do look out for the wonderful gold gown that someone playing the father is going to be wearing. Right, I've done it. Lovely. Good. Now, what is a Kids' Summer Night's Dream? 8 minutes. Well, it's not the first time that we've had a children's show in the festival. Back in 219, two women did a version of The Tempest called Do Not Be Afeared. And they were amazing. They were amazing. It was relaxed. It was Makaton signed. It was immersive. It was particularly for the under fives, which is so clever. And there was games and there were songs, but there was also, you suddenly did things in water. I cannot remember now, presumably because there was a storm, I don't know. We made things with buckets. It was just brilliant. I was at the Brighton Fringe Festival that year and doing something else, and I saw them, and I saw this production, so I asked them, would you like to come and do something at Canterbury? And they leapt at it. So they came. They did about 6 performances over 3 mornings. We got good audiences, and it was really nice. So that was fun. It was a good. That was a very good idea. And then we had COVID, and then everything collapsed a bit with the festival, and it's just about coming on its feet again. And so it's probably time again. Now, I was at Edinburgh Festival last year, and the show on before us was a children's version of The Tempest again. So I thought, I wonder if I can get them to come across, and this would be a good idea. Well, the 2 actors that did it, they came in each morning completely fed up. A, because they hadn't got an audience, and B, because the play was so awful. And they'd done their best to make it better, and they'd added bits in, but it was still awful. I didn't believe it was, but I went to see it the last week, and it was, actually. It was awful. And and there was lots of back projection and things that we couldn't possibly use in Shakespeare, in Canterbury. So I thought, well, that's a pity. And I also thought, well, I could do better than that. And sort of within the 5 minutes after thinking I could do better than that, I got the feeling, actually, I should do better than that, shouldn't I, really? So that's when I knew I was committed to actually bringing a children's show to the festival this year. Why Midsummer? Why Midsummer Night's Dream? Well, you look at Shakespeare and you think, what is going to work for children? History plays? No. No idea. The tragedies don't end well. The clue's in the name, but it's not really going to be child-friendly. I toyed with Titus Andronicus thinking, could we make a panto of it? But no, that wasn't going to work. So you're down with the comedies. The comedies are confusing. They have at least 1, possibly 2 sets of twins normally. And they go on. Twelfth Night's quite nice, but they're not kind to Malvolio, are they? I'm never sure about that bit. Tempest, yes, Tempest works if you wonder what Caliban's doing. So I thought, no, let's make it easier on myself. It could be The Winter's Tale. No, difficult to see why everyone got so upset if you're a 7-year-old. Let's do A Midsummer Night's Dream. It has magic, it has fairies, it has a silly man with a donkey's head. So that works. So that was why that came about. I knew what sort of treatment would suit me. I love a play that comes out of a box. What play comes out of Woman in Black. Woman in Black comes out of a box. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Everything comes out of the box. I love that. I've got to show you why I was in Edinburgh. Got to show off, haven't I? Captain Redbeard's very brilliant comedy cookbook. And so it was going to have costumes, lots of costumes, multiple parts. I love a prop. I am, as I say, in a comedy duo with Captain Redbeard, very brilliant comedy cookbook. And we love a prop. We use baguettes for guitars, and we use breadsticks and things like that. For the Star Wars part of the show, then we obviously have cinnamon buns. For help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. Help me, Obi-Wan, etc. Yes, jolly good. So I love a prop, so we'll have lots of that. And I love making a mess. Props. Yeah, with Captain Redbeard, there's always poppadoms and things like that all over the stage. I love making a mess. My drama teacher used to talk about anointing the stage, where you just come in and you make a complete mess. Best version of this I ever saw was some people called Forced Entertainment. They're a bizarre theatre group, and one of their shows, it started as a bare stage, and then gradually they got more bits of scenery coming on and step ladders, and then they had a snow machine, which was fantastic. So there was snow everywhere and the whole thing. And in the end, there was discarded costumes. The whole stage was chaos. And then two of the actors came on, and they mimed badly to an Italian love song at the front. And while they did this, the rest of the cast just came on and cleared the stage. And everything, the scenery went, and they had these lovely brooms that go like that. And they went up and down, and all the snow went as well. And by the time they'd finished the song, the stage was completely bare. And it was magic. It was another one of those things, thinking, oh, I'll have that. I'm going to use that in the show one day. So I like making a mess. Lots of hats, lots of running around, messy. Ideally, two actors. Now, I stripped down the play to its essential characters and the scenes on a spreadsheet like that. I made an interesting discovery. Often, a scene can be reduced to two characters, but many also need Puck. I hadn't realised how essential Puck is to interact with the three sorts of people in Midsummer Night's Dream. I thought he was just there. But he interacts all with the fairies, he interacts with the lovers a lot, and he interacts with the rude mechanicals. And he's really quite important. So, three actors, two to play all the essential roles, that's 8 essential roles, and one to play Puck. And as the play took shape, I realised that actually Puck was also going to interact with the audience, because he would be the one that interacts and makes sure that they know what's going on, and includes them in the action as well, to comment and recap. And of course, Shakespeare was there first, because he always was, because at the end, if you remember, Puck talks directly to the audience and says, if we shadows have offended, think on this and all is mended, that you have but slumbered here, while all these visions did appear. So, the committee said yes. I turned to the committee, and I already knew who I wanted in the cast. I wanted Claire. I'd worked with her several times. She's been in CSF since the beginning. I worked with her in Hamlet and Much Ado and things like that. She's got long experience of children's drama like me, and she loves children's theatres. That's good. And the other person I wanted was Katie, who we worked with last year in Midsummer Night's Dream. She played Snug the Joiner, if you watched she was the one who was the lion. And she's great. She's got this direct, naive way of acting. There's no artifice. She's huge fun. And she also teaches drama, so she knows what she's doing. Good. So, both said yes, so we were set. So, why do a Shakespeare play for children? Well, two questions really. Why do a play for children anyway? And the second, why on earth do Shakespeare? I think children should have every opportunity to see theatre. Children watch a lot on screens, a lot of well-produced drama, a lot of admirable drama, actually, on TV. But watching TV or films is a passive experience. It really is passive. It tends to be a passive experience. You just soak it up. Whereas I think watching a play needs to be an active experience. And the thing I love about live theatre is that wonderful contract between the actor and the audience. The suspension of belief, isn't it? It's that I am a king, and the audience says, okay, you're a king, that's fine by me. It is night. Okay, it is night. That's that lovely, two-way thing between the audience and the actors. Theatre is about imagination. Radio is better than television because on radio the pictures are better. Children go to the panto. Yes, they go to the panto. They go to children's shows. Often they're adaptations of things they've seen on TV or books that they know. But I think it's worth them experiencing storytelling with no scenery, as few costumes as possible, and being part of the process. It's how children play anyway. When they play in the playground, they are Darth Vader. You know, you're doing that, aren't you? And they're playing with dolls and they're playing with action figures to make stories. It's what they do. Let them see that that's possible on theatre as well. Being an audience is a collaborative experience, and I want kids to have that. So that's why. Why do Shakespeare? Why do Shakespeare? Why subject them to Shakespeare? Isn't that unkind? Well, because they're fun stories. A lot of them are. They're fun stories. Because they're going to keep coming across these stories as they get older. And it'd be nice to have them early on. Because I don't want them to assume that Shakespeare is boring or difficult or not for them. That would be a shame. But also, it's because I want them to hear the sound of Shakespeare. The words, the poetry, and to do so in the middle of the mayhem of a children's show. That would be great. Poetry, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, poetry needs to be heard. It needs to be read out loud. Reading it on the page isn't the same. Shakespeare needs to be heard. It needs to be heard, ideally, on stage. Reading it, did you read it in class? Each taking a part? It's deadly, isn't it? But when you see it, it comes alive. Philip Pullman, I heard him speak once, and he said at school, his English teacher read to them The Fairy Queen by Spenser, which was unintelligible. And he didn't know what was going on at all. But he loved the beauty of it, of how it sounded. And that's what captured him. Even though he couldn't quite understand what it was all about, it sounded fantastic. Thomas Beecham, lots of the famous conductor, lots of quotes given to him. This one might be true. He said, "The English may not like music, but they absolutely love the noise it makes." That's meant to be quite derogatory, but actually I think there's nothing wrong with that. I often don't understand the music and can't tell you why it's like that, but I love the noise it makes. That's how I think about Shakespeare. That you can love the noise it makes, and that's okay. Now, of course, it's an actor's job to make sure that when you have got an unintelligible piece of Shakespeare, you do let the audience know what is going on. And that's an entirely separate talk, which I'll do another day. And I'm very, very keen on that. But it sounds lovely. So what we do is we slip bits of Shakespeare now and again for the children to hear. Proper Shakespeare, we say. So we will be doing a scene, and then someone will say, "I know a bank where the wild thyme blows, where ox slips and the nodding violet grows, quite over-canopied with luscious woodbine, with sweet musk roses and with eglantine. There sleeps Titania some time of the night." Now, no one's going to really say that in real life. And they're not going to know what woodbine is, or eglantine, and no one says over-canopied, and you certainly never say, "There sleeps Titania some time of the night." But it doesn't matter. It sounds great. And that's the point. And we can slip that in. And then we get out the water pistols, and that's fine. So, basically, what we've done is we've created the play that I wish my 9-year-old self could have seen and gone to see. That's the play that we've got there. Niara asked me what's my favourite line in the play. And I thought about it, and I chose Puck's confident assertion, 2/3 of the way through, that Jack shall have Jill, naught shall go ill, and all shall be well. And that all shall be well is something that comes through in our play quite a lot. It's very like Julian of Norwich, the famous quote there that T.S. Eliot uses, that all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. And for me, that really reflects the optimism of the play. It's seemingly insoluble problems and fractured relationships are resolved. And it's how I want the audience to leave. I want them to leave with optimism and with grace for today and bright hope for tomorrow. So that's it. A Kid's Summer Night's Dream, devised with an audience of 5 to 11-year-olds in mind, but maybe enjoyed by anyone who'd enjoy a less serious approach to Shakespeare classic. All the comedy and confusion of the original play, but considerably shorter, with more water pistols and none of the boring speeches. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Yes, we did it.
Which venue?
We're in St Margaret's Churchyard, which is the space behind where the Canterbury Tales experience was. And so we're in there, which is lovely enclosed. It's already, we've got enclosed, we've got ivy up the walls and trees around us, and it's incredibly hot at 11 o'clock in the morning. But never mind, we'll live with that. Very much so. On my original treatment, I basically decided what happens. Demetrius and Helena argue. Oberon sees them and decides to make Demetrius love Helena with magic. Okay, and so we'll do that. That's right, and we'll do that. Xander and Hermia come in and go to sleep. Puck puts potion in Xander's eyes, and I know that's what's got to happen. So I make that happen. That's the thing. So to a large extent, we're following the story. But as I say, every so often we'll put in some proper Shakespeare, and that just lives it. But okay, I've taken huge liberties with the plot, and yeah, and there's a community song at the end. Obviously there is. And we play Simon Says halfway through, because why wouldn't you? And so things like that happen. And if I can use a bubble machine at any point, I will always use a bubble machine, because I've got no shame. But what you've got is the story, and then occasionally people saying, people using having to say, obviously, the course of true love never did run smooth. You say, what? Well, I've got to say that. It's in the original text. It's the famous line. Fair enough. Okay, and then we move on. Yes, thank you. And as I say, we're down to eight characters. Titania, Oberon, four lovers, Bottom, and Quince, and Puck.
Are you circulating to the school?
Yep, Elliot did that this week already, and we'll do it again towards the end of term, I hope. And so we'll see how we go. And yeah, we're charging £5 for grown-ups, and children, accompanying children, are free. So we'll see how it goes. So, good fun. I'm looking forward to it. Good. Thank you. Thank you. Good.
Okay, next up we have John Crofts, who's going to be directing Henry V, which is our free show of the season. This is John's first year with us, and I hope he's going well. We're very excited to have him directing Henry V. So John is a student at Kent. He's studying drama and theatre. He has worked with a number of local theatres since moving to the UK from South Africa. And he is enjoying the experience at Canterbury Shakespeare Festival, I hope. So please welcome John and his talk about Henry V and directing a history play in the set of a modern theatre. Thank you.
Evening all. Right, so the last 2 weeks I've had flu and a chest infection, so I have prepared this much for this evening. Not a thing, nothing written down. I'm still hacking up my lung this morning. So what I'll go through, I like what Nick had to say, who he is, where he comes. It sounds great. I've got no wondrous stories like that. I grew up in South Africa, in a town of 120,000 people. There were no theatres, no clubs, no pubs, no art galleries, no music venues, nothing. just factories and houses. There was no art at our schools. There were no theatre clubs or even drama groups at school. It was a foreign thing that, you know, it was a sports-based culture, and I don't like sports. So I spent most of my life in the world of video games and books and reading. Fortunately, my parents are from here, so I grew up with Shakespeare, although I didn't really know what it was. But luckily, my late father was a huge lover of Shakespeare, particularly the historical stuff. So I knew of Henry, I knew of Richard, I knew of these things growing up, and I was about the only person who did it in class. I know we did Macbeth one year for English class, and I was the only person to pass and remember what it was about, because it's considered rather boring by a lot of people, which is a shame. The language, as Nick said, is so beautiful. If you just listen to it and understand it and just get a taste of it in your tongue, it is absolutely beautiful. So I moved to England 2017. I've joined every amateur dramatics group I could find until I got to university. I've done Shakespeare, I've done musicals. I cannot sing, I cannot dance, but I've done musicals. I've done everything I can. And as Nick said, just as things were going good, COVID happened. And just as that was starting to clear up, my father dropped dead. So I've had 2 years of just hoping to do something. Got back, I had to go back to South Africa for a year, got back here last year. All the theatre things we were planning in Dover, because that's where I live and such, dead. COVID has killed off so many theatres and groups everywhere. Then a friend of mine told me about the Canterbury Shakespeare Festival. I thought that'd be interesting. And then he said, why don't you direct? Because you're studying that next year. Could be interesting. You've acted, direct it. Now, I love art. I always have. So I went through Henry. I watched a few productions. I worked with another friend on the script. We edited it out. I'll tell you how in a minute. And I got my sketch pad, and I started sketching little ideas and how I would put people on a stage. And I took it through the little discussion regarding directing for the Shakespeare Festival, thought nothing of it, and I said, yeah, that sounds great. Do you want to direct it? Here we are. Now, when it comes to Shakespeare, I find there are certain universal shows you can do anywhere. Romeo and Juliet, you need a couple of people on stage, it works. You can do it with students and so forth. Richard III, Titus, Henry, you can't just do them anywhere because there's darker characters, there's grandeur to the material, historical stuff is heavy. How do you translate that to a small theatre company and still give it the grandeur? Coming from an artistic background, I played with some ideas, some of which we'll discuss now. Others I'm keeping secret for the show. So first thing, I worked with a friend. We cut Henry down by 50%. There's a lot of secondary characters in Shakespeare, as there always are, and subplots and that. Most of that's gone. We focused purely on the king, on the war with France, and the actions going on there. Everything else is not relevant. For that, Henry has the majority, nearly 50% of that script, even though it's edited. So, one guy who I've worked with before, he's trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. He's got the role for Henry. He's already got it all up there, which is wonderful. I've stepped in to play Bardolph because we could. The chap who was going to play Bardolph is unfortunately in hospital, and we couldn't find a replacement. So I thought I'll replace him. I'll do it, and I still haven't learnt my lines. Maybe next week. So what I've done, I'm a big lover of Stephen Berkoff. I remember watching his work when I was in South Africa. And since I moved here and started studying, I've learned a lot about Bertolt Brecht. My head of the drama department, he's obsessed with Brecht. He wrote his doctoral thesis on Brecht. And I've read through Brecht, I've read through Berkoff. And there are certain things that I like about both of them. Berkoff is very much a man of visual, particularly facial expression, the way people move. Every action has meaning, and those meanings have to be powerful. Brecht liked simplicity. Now, a show like this, if we had, if I won the lottery tomorrow, we'd have 25,000 people outside with swords and shields, and we'd go the whole hog, as Kenneth Branagh did for the film, and that was wonderful. But we don't have that. We've had to simplify everything. So we have 10 people in the cast, myself included. Everyone apart from Henry is doubling or tripling or sometimes even playing 4 additional roles. So to give expediency is one problem. So I've decided we'll keep it simple. No great costumes. I know the Shakespeare Festival's got some fantastic costumes in storage. We're not using any of them. I've decided everyone will be in theatre blacks. Even though it's broad daylight, keep it simple. Theatre blacks for everyone. 1 or 2 choice items, which is what Brecht always did. So maybe a crown for the king, a sword by his side. That's the King of England, done. Simple visual that he can quickly change if necessary. So that's one thing I've definitely pushed, that everyone will have a lot of interchangeable simple pieces as we go along. The stage layout, I decided, let's play with layout. So I created a massive V shape for V victory or for Henry V. The audience will be around the V on all sides, so the actors will be essentially in the center. They look left, they look right, they look front, there will be audience all around them. There will be that interaction with the audience. Some of the grand things with Henry, particularly all the historical stuff, it's brilliant that Shakespeare, the way he wrote it, where they would always run on stage and say, behold, a great thing is happening over there. You can't see it, because we can't afford the budget. But there's a lot of people over there doing something. They're fighting a battle or something, and we'll describe it to you. But you'll never see that. Well, people like the fighting. They like a battle. But how can I do that with health and safety and other things? I can't have everyone in our theatre company, half of whom are older ladies, armed to the teeth, hitting each other with swords. It's just really not going to look good. So I decided we're going to stylize things. Now, Tess is playing the Queen of France, and she's already seen some of the stylistic choices I've made. For one, the great scene where they're besieging Harfleur is almost a dance piece in a way. It's very physical. The king charges up against the door. There is no door, but we will hear a door because we've got to have sound effects. No lighting or daylight, but sound effects will do. And the king will say his words, and he will push against that door. And whoever's on the other side is going to push back. And other English will join him, and they will all as one move back and forth until you finally hear the door break and the army storming forward. There's going to be another battle scene later on. I'm still planning that one. And just to add a little spice, the Dauphin, who causes a lot of trouble in the original play, and King Henry, they never meet. In mine, they are going to meet and have a little duel, which was requested by both of them. King Henry and the Dauphin did want to have a little sword fight, so that will be there. Beyond that, as I said, I'm keeping it very simple. I want quick costume changes. Everyone's going to be on stage all the time. Even if they haven't got any speaking lines, they'll be there, maybe holding a banner, holding a spear, filling in the background. There's always numbers. The king, the queen, they're never alone. Even if they have a 15-minute speech, someone will be standing behind them with a wash basin or a sword. Just there, adding to their numbers to give them a bit of grandeur. Sound effects-wise, we're still arguing over whether we should get some physical things like a drum or a flute and someone to play it, or just get it on a phone and press play, see how it goes. Beyond that, well, you're going to have to come and see what we've got planned. Questions?
Why Henry V and not any other historical person?
You've not done it before.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but that was the main one. We went through it. I know you did Henry IV, but you didn't. Yeah, consider it. I thought, oh, go Henry V. It's one of those great. Also, yeah, my local pub in Dover, Henry V's on the wall next to the table. I normally say, like, yeah, that's Shakespeare. We could do that. I thought, why not? It's either that or Richard III. I'd love to do Richard III. Maybe next year.
Are you playing up the nationalist thing? England this, England that, England stuff the rest?
Essentially, to an extent, we're pushing it quite amusingly. I mean, we've got a French actress who's going to play the Dauphin in that. And when she came to audition for me, I told her there are scenes in French in that. And she was very excited. So there are actually going to be scenes in French. We've got 2 French speakers. I don't know what they're about. I don't speak French. If it was Zulu or Afrikaans, I could understand it, but no. We have gone for a bit of that. We've also gone for the colour grading, so red for the English, blue for the French. Even though everyone's in theatre blacks, when they're on stage, you see the red, you see the blue, you know whose side you're on. But we've also added a few extra lines here and there. So before the battle, for example, between the Dauphin and Henry, that's not in the original play. So I wrote a small half a page where they essentially one up on each other. Yeah, where he calls, you silly little French person, well, you silly England. They have a go at each other before they settle it. But that's essentially where we were aiming. It was semi, I wouldn't say nationalistic, but it's definitely got that fervour to it of, come on, it's an English tradition. The French are over there. Well, they're asking for it. They're French. Pretty much, well, hence the stage. Massive one. Any other questions? Thoughts? Well, we've got 7 shows, 2 are in the evenings, and 5 daytime, I believe, matinees. I'm looking forward to it. We've got it down to an hour and a half so far, but we'll see if that gets tighter as we go along. But that, from a 3.5 hour original play, I think an hour and a half's exactly what you need. No more, no less. Right then, on to Sarah, is it? Oh, thank you.
Precious things. Because I am clumsy.
Thank you.
I know, I was just like, where did you get a 2019 flyer from? can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi. Yes. Okay. Great. You are here on the screen. So hello. Okay. Let me just introduce you really quickly, Sarah, and then you can do your talk. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So we are here with Sarah Lockyer from the Isle of Man, directly for the island. Sarah has been with the festival for many years. I had the pleasure of directing her for Macbeth in 2021, yes. She played... she did Duncan, she played Duncan. She directed our Henry IV Part 1 last year, and this year she's directing the Changeling. It's a 14 plus show. It's going to be very tragic, very sad, and very problematic. So let's say a warm welcome to Sarah.
Okay. Okay, fine. Let me know if it's okay. I can't hear myself. I can't hear you. Is that okay? Yeah. Right. Okay, thank you. I'll start then. Right. Anyway, good evening, everybody. I'm delighted to be joining you remotely from the Isle of Man. And very much looking forward to joining the festival this summer. I'll be over next week and starting rehearsals on the Changeling with my group. This evening, I just wanted to have a little chat about ideas of changing and changelings in Shakespeare and Middleton. And I used as my title, The Lamentable Changes from the Best, which is a quote from King Lear. And King Lear, in common with many of Shakespeare's plays, certainly explores the consequences of change, be they tragic or comic, and presents characters who cause or react to or become victims of change. What I wanted us to think about briefly this evening is to what extent characters in Shakespeare and in Middleton's tragedy, The Changeling, actually do change, and also what the idea of a changeling is, what it meant to a Renaissance audience, and what it may mean to us today. So Renaissance writers certainly seem to have been intrigued, if not obsessed by the gap between seeming and being, between appearance and reality. It's certainly proven a fruitful subject to many an English A-level and undergraduate English literature essay. While poets, notably Edmund Spenser, in his epic poem The Fairy Queen Turned Allegory, to explore this, and prose writers such as Thomas Nash, whose Unfortunate Traveller is sometimes considered one of the first novels in English. He explored the possibility of unreliable narrators. And so these writers, in their own ways, could explore these differences between what really is and what only appears to be. But I think that probably we can agree that the stage in Renaissance England really exploited to excellent effect that gap between appearance and reality. It had to. Not only was it pretty obvious to audiences at the Globe or Blackfriars or wherever that they weren't actually in Egypt or in a wood just outside Athens or on the They also recognised that the Queen of the Nile, or the delightful Hermia and Helena in Midsummer Night's Dream, were being played by boys. And the numbers of soldiers at Agincourt was more akin to the numbers in a playground scuffle than in a full battle. Shakespeare, of course, lets us know that he knows this all too well. It is a lovely line in Antony and Cleopatra, when Cleopatra says, "I don't want some boy to buoy my greatness through the streets of Rome, to imitate her, to have a boy actor playing her." And of course, Shakespeare uses his famous prologue speeches in Henry V to apologise for the fact that he couldn't possibly do justice to Agincourt, but we just have to use our imaginations. So things are not what they've seen on the stage, and that can be said of some of the most famous Shakespearean characters. His villains rely on their ability to deceive, to appear honest, and that's an epithet that's used extensively of Iago, for example, in Othello. He's a honest Iago, everybody calls him. Of course, the audience know he's not, but it really is honest Iago, who plays upon Othello's insecurities and twists his thoughts to breaking point. Iago doesn't change. He remains true to himself. It's the understanding of those around him that changes in the end, but of course, it's too late. Does Othello change? We talk a lot about what makes a tragic hero in Renaissance drama, and particularly in Shakespeare. And one of the classical and classic definitions or traits alongside the fatal flaw of the tragic hero is becoming self-aware, but too late. We may think that Othello changes in the course of the play, but actually, I would argue he remains as true to type as Iago, and a type that is perhaps quite uncomfortable for a modern audience as well. He lost Desdemona because she pitied what he'd been through as a soldier, but he's never really confident in his relationship with her. In the course of one scene, in fact scene 3, it's amazing tour de force in Shakespeare, the plot that the whole play pivots on it, Othello shifts from absolute belief in and trust in Desdemona to being convinced that she is committing adultery. While we can credit Iago for this, partly because he's absolutely marvellous at twisting Othello's thoughts, surely this must be coming from Othello's insecurity about the racial differences between them. He says, "Happily, for I am black," at one point, and Iago pounces on it. And his powerful emotions being let loose as well, which is also part of his nature. It's not a change in him at all. Iago is cunning, there's no doubt about that, but he isn't a magician, and he's not going to be able to plant any ideas in Othello's mind that aren't really already there at some level. This works in the comedies too. Think about Malvolio in Twelfth Night. He's manipulated by Maria and co. into thinking that Olivia's in love with him. But even before he picks up the letter, and supposedly which supposedly declares her love and urges him to smile and wear yellow stockings, he is already fantasizing about being married to Olivia, and even finding precedent for such a match between a servant and a mistress. It's only because he already believes he is doted on that he follows the letter's instructions and makes a cross-gartered fool of himself. And he never shifts from his pomposity, his scorn towards Sir Toby and his cronies, and his sense of self-importance and privilege, so no change there. Think about Caliban in The Tempest. He certainly doesn't change, despite the education provided by Prospero. In fact, one of the famous quotes from the play is when Caliban says, "You taught me language, and my profit on it is I know how to curse." So again, no change there. This static idea of essential personality can be connected in part with Renaissance humour psychology, the prevailing belief that the balance of fluids or humours in the body gave rise to personality humour itself, of course. Shakespeare uses these ideas. In The Taming of the Shrew, for example, Petruchio, who is, once he's married to Catherine and takes her off and subjects her to all sorts of things to kind of break her, one of the things he does is take the meat away from her when she's really hungry, because he says, oh no, that's not right for your humours. So, he's playing with that idea there. And of course, one of Shakespeare's big contemporary rivals, one would say, Ben Jonson, he wrote 2 plays which actually use humour in the title, Every Man in His Humour and Every Man Out of His Humour. Renaissance audiences, as well as perhaps some modern audiences, also give some credence to things like astrology and star signs and, when people were born, what star were you born under, star-crossed lovers, suggesting that personality traits and talents are fixed and determined partly by when you were born. Again, going back to 12th Night, forgive me, I have just recently directed a production of 12th Night. So Toby urges for Andrew to dance, saying, were we not born under Taurus? That's legs and thighs. Let me see thee cut a caper. 12th Night also makes use of the prevalent and convenient device of a woman dressing as a boy. How much more convincing is, to the audience, is a boy actor being Cesario than appearing as Viola in her women's weeds. Such disguise, of course, is superficial. Viola doesn't change, essentially. And actually, she nearly gives herself away many times in her conversations with Orsino for comic effect or for pathos. The same goes for Rosalind, As You Like It. The audience enjoy knowing that women are in disguise and anticipating what the other actors will do, the characters rather, how they will react when they find out the truth. The audience is also in on other forms of disguise. One of the popular devices in Renaissance drama, and it's found in traditional tales the world over, is the bed trick. This is where someone's fooled into sleeping with a different partner. Shakespeare uses this in Measure for Measure and All's Well That Ends Well, and it shows up in at least 40 plays by his contemporaries. So this is when a real change occurs. One woman is substituted for another, and the man seems none the wiser until the cold light of morning. It's rather difficult to believe, but we do go along with it because it's an essential part of the plot. These substitutes don't change within their own natures, of course. In fact, in the case of Mariana, we witness a loyalty and consistency that we admire hugely, and which actually seems really wasteful on Angelo and other of Shakespeare's great deceivers who've shown in his true colours. I suppose the ultimate bed swapping in Shakespeare one could argue is when Gertrude swaps Hamlet's father for Claudius. We could call these characters changelings in the casual definition of the word, in that they replace another person and are understood, at least in the dark, to be that person. I'll come on to another definition of changeling shortly, but just to recap what I've suggested very briefly about Shakespeare. We have characters who remain true to themselves from start to finish, for good or ill. Usually, the audience recognises them for who they are. There's no mistaking a villain like Iago or Edmund, but they may not be seen in their true colours by the other characters. Then we have characters who take on an actual disguise, like Viola in Twelfth Night, or Portia in The Merchant of Venice, or even Hero as a hidden bride at the end of Much Ado, or Hermione as a statue in Winter's Tale, or Hamlet's antic disposition, like one might argue as well. Again, the audience sees that these people are not actually changing their true nature. More complex are the characters who don't recognise that they're deceiving themselves. They may attribute what happens to changes around them in circumstances or in other people. Think about Lear or Macbeth. They look out to find reasons for what's going on. They tend to kind of push the blame onto other people, onto other circumstances and situations, rather than looking inward and seeing what's wrong with them. But so all that really changes is how well they understand their own motivation and nature. Some of Shakespeare's tragic heroes I don't think achieve much self-awareness at all, and others more fully so. but they're not actually changing their nature. So now I'm just going to turn to Middleton's Changelings. More exactly, the play was written by Middleton and Rowley, but Rowley is usually credited with the subplot set in the madhouse. Now, I've chosen to present only the main plot for the festival's production of the play this year. It makes it a more intense tragedy, and the madhouse, I think, can provide some commentary on what takes place in the castle, but they're also perhaps less appreciated by a modern audience. I could say less uncomfortable and less comfortable to watch, but actually there's very little comfort in the main tragedy. With plays like this, awash with lust and illicit sex and blackmail and murder, it's no wonder the Puritans wanted to close the theatres. In its original sense, a changeling is a child substituted in infancy by fairy folk for a human baby whom they abduct. Apparently they needed human babies to have something to do with sustaining their bloodlines and keeping the fairy folk alive. So a changeling was like a real child, but they could be distinguished by various traits. Sometimes by their appearance. They could appear rather ghostly and pale. And of course, we've got quite a lot of pale, ghostly figures occurring in Shakespeare, coming back to haunt in one way or another, and also in Middleton's The Changeling. But changelings could also be identified by their personality. They were subject to temperamental outbursts, to being very unruly, difficult to control, really ruled by their hearts rather than their heads. It's hard to assess how much people in Middleton's time actually believed in changelings, but it's certain that the title of the play has a kind of resonance of some evil magic at work. In the subplot, in the madhouse, two gentlemen of the court disguise themselves as inmates so that they can seduce the madhouse keeper's wife. They're identified in the dramatist's personae as counterfeits. The concept of a madman replacing a sane one is certainly in keeping with that idea of a changeling. At the end of the play, they speak about their transformation in a manner reminiscent of Bottom's translation into an ass in the Midsummer Night's Dream. But the main changeling in the play is usually taken to be Beatrice, the central female character, who undergoes a shocking transformation from innocent virgin to accomplice in murder, to adulterous sexual partner of the villain, de Flores. I'm sorry, I should have given a little alert there if you don't know the plot of the play. It's interesting to consider to what extent Beatrice actually changes and to what extent she shows that inherent nature. To put it another way, is she changing or is she actually a changeling? Before we think about Beatrice, I want to talk about the villain, de Flores, who is as compelling as he is repulsive and absolutely the consummate villain, like Iago. He's considered virtuous and honest by Vermandiro, whom he serves. Even, ironically, praised for his bravery late in the play when he goes into the bedchamber he has himself set fire to and in order to murder the maid. He's evil throughout, and he's self-aware of his lust. He's calmly violent, adept at deception and blackmail. The audience recognises him for what he is. That's partly obviously to do with the structure of the play and what we're in on. And we wait for the other characters to see what his true nature is. There's plenty of dramatic tension when we realise all too clearly what payment de Flores will demand of Beatrice, although she seems oblivious. And it's still shocking, even if inevitable, when she is obliged to succumb to his lust. Beatrice finds de Flores repulsive from the outset, but he is there, in the depth of her disgust, a kind of perverse attraction to this man who's the opposite of her suitors, older, lesser of degree, with some kind of unidentified skin condition that could well be an indication of sexual experience. In other words, a bit rough, perhaps attractive as an opposite to her youth, beauty, innocence, or, as I would suggest, more of a mirror to her true nature lurking beneath, a nature that embraces violence, deception, and Beatrice that encounters Alcimero in the temple, the kind of goddess or holy innocent, almost immediately starts to plot a violent end for the man she's betrothed to. Nobody suggests this to her. So where can such a plan come from? When discussing what disgusts them, Alcimero mentions his aversion to cherries. Now, critics have made a lot of this, suggesting, for example, he's alarmed at the idea of sex. If this reading holds true, then it fits well with the idea of being drawn to and repelled by the same thing. The fact that later on his wedding night, he spends a very long time in bed with Diaphanta, thinking she's Beatrice, of course, but that surely shows he had quite a healthy sexual appetite, as does the maid, although she's a virgin. It's clear from her exchanges with Beatrice that she is actually quite interested in the idea of sleeping with men, highly sexual aware and very keen. Beatrice's aversion to De Flores can be seen in the same light. Her dropped glove can be seen as a kind of sexual game, flirtation, encouraging his lust. Is she aware of what she is doing? Is it in her nature? There's no denying that once Beatrice and De Flores are sexual partners, she seems to show no shame. As well as a bed trick, we have a virginity test, an absurd business that makes us laugh very uneasily. And she brazens it out with aplomb. We know it's only a matter of time until the pair of them are discovered. The anticipation is increased by doubts expressed by Tommaso, the brother of the murdered fiancé, Alonso, who is astute and keen to reveal the truth. He's about the only person who seems to see through De Flores quite quickly. When they are captured, De Flores and Beatrice are locked in a room together, awaiting their fate. The screams of Beatrice are ambiguous. Sexual delight, fear, pain, the screams of a changeling, a possessed young woman, unchanged, unrepenting. At the end of the play, Alcimero attributes all the changes that have occurred to the moon. That's quite convenient. But what has really changed? Circumstances around the characters, but I would argue not the characters themselves. Appearance and reality have in the end merged, and the effect on the audience is chilling. We may not share a Renaissance understanding of changelings, and our ideas of personality and psychology are a far cry from those of Shakespeare and his contemporaries, but I think we can recognise the ugly truth that Middleton exposes beneath the veneer of his society, and believe in these compelling characters he's created. Well, that was just an idea or two I had about some Shakespeare plays, but also an introduction to my interpretation of, my take on the Changeling. And I'd be very happy to answer any questions. I don't quite know how that's going to work, but I'd be very happy to answer any questions or elaborate if you wish. Thank you.
Hi, Sarah. Okay. Thank you. Hi, Sarah. No. It's not going to happen. Hi, Sarah. Can you hear me? Yes, okay, you can. Okay. Okay, I don't think there are any questions right now, but we didn't have a lot of an audience either, so there we go. We can see the audience now, or not. Does anyone have any questions for Sarah? Sorry?
It's lovely to see you. That's
So, yes, Nick is saying that it's lovely to see you.
Oh, well, that's very nice to see you as well. I'm looking forward to being back in Canterbury and getting involved in the festival.
Yes. Okay, yes, I think this is all for today. I loved your talk, Sarah. Thank you so much. It was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to watching the Changeling.
Oh, well, that's good. I look forward to seeing all the other plays as well, and I look forward to hearing the other talks as well, because I understand you're going to be able to put this on the festival YouTube channel at some point.
Yes, today's we'll have to have a lot of editing on the video, but yes, that will be on the way to YouTube.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you for organising it, Yara. Thank you for those of you who came, and we look forward to seeing you at the festival.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Oof. We could hear her.
Yes, it's clear.
Yes. We could see her, we could hear her at the end, in the end of it. I didn't even thought of like